It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for the Walking Dead spin-off Dead City, also known as Isle of the Dead, which revolves around the Negan and Maggie characters. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at something that was teased at for the show as far as the concept or an aspect of the concept of the show, which is that we're going to see Maggie and Negan in an infested New York City where they're gonna be stumbling upon millions of zombies, which is definitely super exciting. Now, there's a lot of things that I do want to talk about when it comes to this concept of seeing millions of walkers and things that we definitely need to see, in my opinion, for this concept to truly work. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to break it all down. Alright, as always, before we dive into it, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. With that said, let's dive right into it. So of course, we've seen some official pictures for the show, and in some of these official pictures, we definitely see Negan and Maggie in a city setting, which is definitely cool because it's a different environment and atmosphere. We are not used to seeing the characters in a large city like New York, and we haven't really seen the characters having to deal with the things that come with trying to survive in a big city. The closest thing we saw was earlier on, way back in season 1, episode 1, when they were in Atlanta. Now, none of the official pictures that they've released really show us New York. Yes, they are in a big city, but it's not New York, it's actually New Jersey. So we haven't really seen any official pictures of the environment of New York yet, but they have teased that we are going to see Negan and Maggie in New York. So that's definitely cool. But what I do find extremely awesome is that they did tease that we're going to see millions of zombies in New York. And we're going to see a situation where Negan and Maggie are going to have to deal with 1 million walkers in New York. Now, as awesome as that sounds, it's not enough by itself. And the reason why I say that is because we've already seen thousands and thousands and thousands of walkers in a huge herd in the original show, on Fear the Walking Dead, and on World Beyond. But every time we've seen them, they were a far distance from where the survivors are. And we haven't really seen the survivors having to deal with them head on. We've always seen them kind of redirect the herd and lots of CGI and not a lot of practical zombies being used to really make it impactful and for us to really be immersed into that atmosphere of seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of walkers. So going back to Dead City, if they do the same thing and we see millions of walkers but from a distance, or a scenario where they're just down below while the survivors are in tall buildings, then it doesn't quite have the same impact. And it's as if we don't really see millions of walkers because it doesn't really seem like we're really dealing with millions of walkers. So for this to really work, the first thing that they really need to do is make it not just be the survivors having to deal with millions of walkers, but rather the survivors having to actually deal with 1 million walkers and having to make their way through an infested New York with a lot of zombies. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we have to see the survivors having to go head on with large portion of these walkers. I'm not saying Maggie and Negan versus 1 million walkers and they win. I'm just saying that they need to make it a bit more intense and they need to make it seem like it's actually a lot of walkers that the survivors are dealing with. Another thing that they teased at, which I absolutely loved, was that we're going to see a situation where the survivors are going to have to go from building to building using zip lines in order to get from one place to the other and not have to deal with the thousands and thousands and thousands of walkers down below, or the millions of walkers down below, however you want to look at it, which I feel is definitely a layer that gets added in that we haven't really seen before, and we haven't really seen the survivors have to deal with a situation like that. So it's definitely awesome to see the survivors facing this challenge and having to be a bit more innovative in terms of how to get through and how to survive. So I absolutely love that. But even with that, I feel like there's still a few things missing to really give us something that I feel they definitely need to give us for Dead City. I think that there's a few different things that comes with the environment and the atmosphere that they could utilize to really give us post-apocalyptic New York. One of those things is using the bodies of water around New York and the rivers. Now, there's two ways that they could do this. If we're looking at the summertime, then the bodies of water and the rivers themselves are something unique and something that we haven't really seen the survivors have to deal with before. They could add a layer to the story to make the story even more intense and exciting. Now, obviously it's not enough to just jump on a boat and that's the way they deal with it. I think that they need to be a bit more clever in how they have the survivors deal with the river or body of water aspect of the atmosphere that gets added in. Now, the other thing is, if we're not looking at the summertime, if we have the survivors having to deal with the bodies of water around New York in the winter time, then that I feel is something that we've obviously never seen in The Walking Dead before. And it's something that they could definitely use to their advantage. A situation where they could have the survivors have to deal with frozen bodies of water around New York. In that case, it's not really a body of water that you're dealing with. There's a bit more that goes with it because it's a frozen body of water. Now, it's only solid frozen to a point. If you have millions of walkers on it, it obviously caves in. So then at that point, you have another layer of the story that gets added in that you could utilize to raise the intensity of the story and make it even more exciting and interesting. So I feel like that's definitely something that they could do. Now, with that said, there's something else that they could do. Going back to the idea of the survivors having to go from one building to the other using zip lines, what we could also see is the writers taking that to another level and going above and beyond just that in itself, and having the survivors actually utilizing the airway in order to get around. We've obviously never seen the survivors use a helicopter, so what they could do is have the survivors utilize a helicopter. Maybe they find a survivor who's a pilot or something like that, and they try to make their way from one place to the other. We've obviously seen the Civic Republic military use a helicopter a lot to get from one place to the other, but never the survivors themselves. So if they do all of that, then they're obviously utilizing all aspects from the ground, the waters, and also the airways. So they're basically utilizing every type of atmosphere and every type of way to get around in order to make this story awesome and exciting like no other show has been able to do before in the franchise. Now, going back to one other thing, when we're talking about the ground, there's another thing that I feel they need to do, which they did tease at briefly. They told us that Negan and Maggie are gonna stumble upon a large-scale battle that's gonna take place in New York, and they're gonna find themselves in the middle of a war. They're going to be in New York, in an apocalyptic New York, in a war zone, which I feel is awesome because, like I said before, if we just have Negan and Maggie in buildings isolated from the actual city center where the majority of the walkers are, then it doesn't really do much. But if you do have the survivors actually being forced to have to deal with some of the walkers and potentially the battles that are taking place between different groups in New York for control, you could definitely raise the intensity even more. But that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. I'm definitely interested to know your thoughts and opinions though. What do you think about the idea of seeing millions of walkers in New York? Do you think it'll work if they just have millions of walkers from a distance, or the survivors seeing them from buildings? Or do you think that they really need to go all in and have it truly feel like they have to deal with a million walkers? And what are your thoughts around the stuff I talked about when it comes to the airways and also the bodies of water that are around New York? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.